Okay, YouTubers, UFO enthusiasts and such like. I want to give it a little update on things in relation to this great Operation Photoflash UFO hoax that allegedly took place in the Irish Sea on 23rd of January 1974 and was used to try and account for why a UFO crashed on the Berwyn Mountains. The evidence over the years has come to light which seems to suggest that there was a landing rather than a UFO crash, and interestingly, as that theory took hold or started to take hold, the actual story of this particular UFO crash changed. The location changed, and the information that was originally given to people like Margaret Fry in the mid-90s, 1997ish, 1997 onwards, that story changed in 1999, possibly quite early in the year. But it changed, and the UFO landing on Cad Berwyn suddenly became a UFO crash in a totally different place. The story was exactly the same. It's just that the location changed, and this particular location change within the story was the one that was given to a UFO researcher, Russ Kellett, and he took up the reins on that story, and for all those years, right up to the present day, although he's gone particularly quiet on it at the moment, he hardly ever mentions it on his YouTube now, on his Facebook rather, in all his groups. He stuck to that story, and he pushed that story out into the UFO community, which I believe was the original intention of the hoaxers behind it. Once again, I'll reiterate that Russ isn't a hoaxer. He's just conveyed a hoax into the UFO community in his personal belief that it was all true. Of course, the evidence is mounting day by day that it simply isn't true. It was all a lie. We know who the guy is who created the hoax, or was involved in the creation of it. He was the go-between. We've also linked this guy to Holyhead Coastguard Station, which suggests conspiracy, because in April 2000, Russ received a letter that was authored in Holyhead Coastguard Station on official letterheaded paper, and that was sent to him, or it got to him eventually, because he claims he used an intermediary to get the first bit of information. A friend of his, going by the name of McNulty, apparently he used this Mr. McNulty's name and address because he had personal problems going on. And then it got from this McNulty guy to Russ. And they confirmed as a statement of fact that a naval operation took place in the Irish Sea that night, and they even gave it a name, Operation Photoflash, which is a load of bollocks. But nonetheless, they gave this name, they invented it, and they gave it to Russ Kellett. There was an exercise in the Irish Sea that night. It was called Operation Photoflash. Planes were allegedly using photoflash bombs to illuminate UFOs under the water, and there was all sorts of warships involved, and ultimately these warships flushed 2 UFOs out of the water near Puffin Island. Russ Kellett has made numerous statements in writing and verbally saying all this happened around Puffin Island. However, when he became aware that all the information was under challenge, he suddenly changed tack and said, well, I never ever said it was near Puffin Island. But of course, there's lots of stuff online where he said this. It's all been screenshotted, it's all been copied, he can't retract it. So that's one thing. However, basically these UFOs were flushed out the water. There was a shootout. One was injured. It flew across Anglesey. It was intercepted by jet fighters, chased across Anglesey, over the Menai Strait, across the mainland. It was shot up again with 2 air-to-air missiles off a Harrier jump jet over or near Capel Kirrig. And Russ even says there was witnesses of this engagement. How that is, I don't know, because it was pitch black. It was bloody well dark at 4:30 that day. Yet all this has been going on, and of course the UFO crashed on the Berwyn Mountains originally, but when it became a landing, all of a sudden the venue changed and the UFO crashed on the side of a main road, still found by the same people, but the location changed, and that was about 1999. As I say, it was dark. It was going dark at 4:30. It was certainly dark by 5 o'clock. Whether you believe in a crash or a landing scenario, there is no dispute over the time frame. This UFO was sussed out about 9:15 in the evening. A lot of people tied in an air tremor that night and an explosion sound with an impacting UFO. That was one of the original scenarios of a crash, and at the time everyone believed that. Right up to the late 90s, everyone believed there'd been a UFO crash on the Berwyns, but of course information was starting to come out then that made it look less and less likely like a crash. So to maintain this hoax, things had to change, and the story changed, and the revised story was given to Russ. Russ still hasn't been able to account for why all this went on at Puffin Island, in probably the shallowest part of the Irish Sea you could imagine. Even at high tide, on the highest tides, you could not get a warship anywhere near within 10 miles, 15 miles of where he claimed all this happened. It's just not possible. And Puffin Island is only 800 yards off the coast of Anglesey, a larger island, and it's only a couple of miles from the mainland. Yet Russ is saying there were ships in there dropping depth charges. On the 23rd of January 1974 they were depth charging within a couple of miles of the coast, and no one saw a thing, no one heard a thing. I don't think Russ has ever actually heard a depth charge explosion. I don't think he's ever seen the wash from one, the damage it does to the marine life underneath. There would have been fish washed up on the beaches, dead. I know the place is full of seals. I mean, there's probably bits of seal all over the coast, but nothing like that ever come. And of course he had a bogus call from some clown called Jacko, who doesn't exist, saying he was on a fishing boat. Well, that's remarkable, because the tide was out, and all the land around, all the seabed around Puffin Island is land. It's dry land at low tide. There's huge sandbanks out there. All the seabed from Puffin Island right across the coast almost to Conwy is dries out at low water. It's known as Lavan Sands, Traeth Lavan, and it's so dry and secure, even in medieval times and going back right back to pre-Roman times. There was a route across the sands at low tide, a bit treacherous, but nonetheless there was a route across the sands, and a short boat ride across the main channel, a couple of 100 yards wide, and then all the people were on Anglesey. And the water's never more than about 40 feet deep. Around Puffin Island, a little bit deeper, maybe 90 feet, 100 feet, at the best possible highest tides, and then only for a few minutes, because the tide comes up. A few minutes later it starts to go down. So we know the Berwyn event happened about 20 to 9, quarters to 9. There was an air tremor, 8:38. No one disputes the time, although there are disputes over the epicentre of this. as I mentioned previously, Richard Hall come up with some very interesting information that suggested the epicentre of the earth tremor was actually above the surface of the ground, and nowhere near Bala. The official version is it was about 5,000 metres below Bala, and Bala was sort of the epicentre. Well, that's a different matter altogether, whether that was true or not, and that's a different line of research. My current line of research at the moment is this confirmation that Russ received from Holyhead Coastguard. Now, I've got a photocopy here. It's only a photocopy. There's the MCA, Maritime and Coastguard Agency logo there, and you can see there, I'll get that on the screen there, 2nd of January 2000, and that's the wording, quite an illiterate piece of paper, wrong font, wrong typeface, everything about this letter was wrong. And that piece of paper, by the way, I got in a the worst response to a Freedom of Information request I've ever had from a government agency. Now then, there is a reason why I got that crap response, which I'll come to in a minute. But essentially, that's the letter I've been looking into. Now, that letter was sent to Russ, or via an intermediary, dated the 2nd of April 2000. And ever since then, Russ has held that letter up like this, as the holy grail that this naval operation took place. And even though the naval operation didn't take place, it was a complete lie and a complete fabrication on the part of the Holyhead Coastguard. Nonetheless, even if it was true, the operation, as it were, wouldn't have been called Operation Photoflash. The exercise might have been called something else, but it wouldn't have been called that. The Holyhead Coastguard called it Operation Photoflash because they claimed that this exercise was being run from a place called Jurby Range in the Isle of Man. And in fact, Jurby Range, it's closed down now. Jurby Range was in fact a bombing range offshore, offshore of the northwest part of the Isle of Man, and it was a relatively small area of sea, and all sorts of weapons were tested here, including photoflash bombs. And it wasn't unusual apparently for photoflash bombing exercises to take place. But the thing about photoflash bombs is they're designed to be dropped from aeroplanes, not helicopters like some people believe, but aeroplanes, and they explode at a given time just above the surface of the water. And the idea is, for a brief few milliseconds, they give off this enormous light, probably thousands of times brighter than even a lighthouse light, for the purpose of photography. So it allows aerial reconnaissance of objects on the water, perhaps even just subsurface. But of course, if anyone knows the Irish Sea, it's not the sort of place where, if you've got flying saucers sitting on the bottom of the Irish Sea in 300 feet of water, a little photo flash bomb on the surface is going to find it on the bottom. Absolute load of rubbish, can't be done. Anyway, the territorial waters of the Isle of Man, for those who don't know, the Isle of Man is a little island about 35 miles long by about 12 miles wide in the Irish Sea, wedged between Great Britain and the Republic of Ireland. And it's an independent country. It's a protectorate of the United Kingdom. It has its own government, tin walled, and it basically runs its own affairs. But the Ministry of Defence had a lease of land on the Isle of Man, Jurby, and a couple of other little places as well. They had a few other interests around the island, and they used this seabed as seawater and the seabed as a place to drop bombs and other ordnance. And a lot of the people on the Isle of Man, seemingly most of them, didn't like the presence of the British military there, and as a consequence the activities of the Ministry of Defence there, these bombing ranges and that, they were under intense scrutiny. There was one organisation which have been very helpful, a thing called the Celtic League. Now the Celtic League is it's not my version of Celtism. Anyone who knows me, I'm into all the Celtic languages, Celtic history and stuff. And the Isle of Man has its own Celtic history. It's regarded as a Celtic nation. It has its own language, Manx, which is a dialect of Irish, as is Scottish Gaelic. And they identify themselves as a Celtic nation. Celtism these days is invariably linked to anti-establishment, anti-military, left-wing sort of stuff, you know, and it's not my scene at all. But nonetheless, these people kept a rein on the MOD's activities. Now the remit was that the bombing had to take place inside this bombing range. Of course, the military being the military, they sometimes took no notice and sometimes they made mistakes, and bombs would drop outside the range, and the planes weren't supposed to overfly the island, but they did, and of course that upset the locals. So the place was under intense scrutiny, and basically that gives researchers today an insight into what the MOD were up to in the 70s. Now because of that, I've been in contact with the Celtic League. They actually provided some very, very good information, and reviewing that information, it seems that it's even more unlikely. I won't go into the details of why, because I know the MCA are looking at these video uploads. They're looking for an excuse to try and get out of this letter and also to save the neck of a guy in Holyhead Coastguard. But so I don't want to give too much away, because at the moment they don't seem to have a lot to try and defend themselves with, and I have no intention of helping the MCA to defend themselves over this letter. The letter's false, it's fraudulent, it's corrupt, and I'm not going to let it go. And we'll see where we go with that. They can fight me all they want, but it doesn't alter the fact that a letter was authored in Holyhead Coastguard Station in April 2000 on officially letterheaded paper with totally bogus information in, and that's been used to con the public ever since. Anyone who's inquired about this operation has received the same drivel, and it's absolutely bogus. Anyway, going back to Russ before and this UFO crashing, Russ thought he had the Holy Grail, but in fact what the Holyhead Coastguard had done is they produced this letter, and they made out that this naval operation occurred and worded it as a statement of fact. In fact, they could never make it as a statement of fact, because they can't even produce the logbook which they allegedly consulted to get this information. And there's loads and loads of information being dug up all over the place, which contradicts everything in that letter and everything the Maritime and Coastguard Agency can possibly say now to justify the letter. Basically, I don't know, I like to think they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and tough shit, like, they should never have been involved in the conning of the public in the first place. But I, on the was it 3rd of November 2014, I filed a Freedom of Information request, and although the station manager at Holyhead Coastguard, a guy called Raymond Carson, was in the frame, MCA passed on my Freedom of Information request, which was sent to Southampton, to this Mr. Carson. Well, the guy's in the frame. At the very least, he was privy to this letter not being kosher since the day it was written. He's been a very long time in that station, and the guy's due to retire at the end of April, and it's my contention at the moment that one of the reasons the MCA is stalling on me is because they're going to buy time to get rid of this Carson guy, because he's an integral part of this, and once he's gone, I think they think, well, it'll be a lot easier for us, because there's less people who are accountable, you know. But I've got a few tricks up my sleeve yet. Anyway, I've made a few notes here anyway, so I'm terrible for dates off the top of my head, but 3rd of November 2014, Freedom of Information request sent to Southampton. It was then forwarded to Raymond Carson at Holyhead Coastguard Station, who's in the frame for at least being privy to this hoax. There is more, but will be in a future upload and on the website. As I say, I can't reveal too much about the alleged connections between Mr. Carson and this letter, but on the 2nd of December he replied, and of course it was the worst FOI request I've ever had, and that's not unsurprising. I believe the guy's got a vested interest in seeing this hoax promoted, and also now, because it's been exposed, in somehow trying to defend it, and maybe even trying to extricate themselves from it. The MCA is certainly trying to extricate itself from this, but it can't. On the 7th of January, I filed an internal review request, because Christmas was in the way and New Year was in the way, so I gave a bit of grace there. I filed this request for an internal review, which should take 20 working days, so that's actually about 28 days. So that takes us to about the 30th of January. On the 30th of January 2015, the Maritime and Coastguard Agency replies saying they need another 5 days to research this, and that would then go to the 6th of February. They said I would have my response by the 6th of February 2015. On the 6th of February, they send another letter saying it will now be the 20th of February when they reply, because some new information's come to light. Well, I think I know what that new information is, and it's something online. I won't go into it here, because I don't want to tip them off, because they're looking for ways to get out of this. But essentially, it would be the 20th of February. Of course, the 20th of February came, and unsurprisingly, the 20th of February went. Nothing. Absolute silence from them. Now, it's interesting, because the two previous replies were sent. The first one was sent special delivery. Now, for those of you watching this who aren't British, special delivery is a postal service which you sign for and pay extra for, and it arrives the next day, guaranteed before 1 PM. It's quite unusual for any government agency, especially in these times of austerity, to send anything like that. But you sign for it, they know you've had it, and you know you've received it. The second one was a recorded delivery. It's exactly the same as a special delivery, except it can take a little bit longer to come. There's no guarantee on the time and day it will arrive, but it should usually arrive sometime the next day if it's first class. I signed for that. Anyway, 20th of February came and went. On the 3rd of March, which is like about 12 days later, I emailed Elaine Adams. Now, Elaine Adams is a girl at MCA. I think she's a little bit higher up, perhaps, as the MCA, the Maritime and Coastguard Agency, is part of the Department of Transport in Britain. So I think, although she's with the MCA, I think she might be a little bit higher up the ladder, as it were. But I'm not quite sure about that. Anyway, she's handling my review request, and she's the one who's been sending me these letters saying I need more time, I need more time. I emailed her on the 3rd. Now, I don't normally like emailing people, because emails have a nasty habit of not being received, and you can't really prove that people have received them. So I mentioned in it that I would be sending a follow-up letter. I hadn't sent the follow-up letter. I would have sent the follow-up letter had she not replied. But as she did reply, there was no need to send a follow-up letter. She emailed back the same day, the 3rd of March, Monday the 3rd of March, and she said it'll be in the post next day, that's Tuesday the 4th of March, if she can catch the post, or on the 5th of March. Definite statements. It's now the 15th of March, and guess what? Nothing. So I've been forced to file a formal complaint. It doesn't matter to me now if they suddenly send the stuff and backdate it and make out it's passed across in the post or whatever. The complaint stands, and it actually does say that in the complaint. But they're dragging out everything. They're stalling for time. Now, I also know that someone at Southampton has accessed the website where all my stuff's uploaded, and they spent some time looking at that. I also know that someone on behalf of MCA is up in North East Wales, has spent a huge amount of time on the website looking at particularly the whole story, but a lot around this letter, and they've actually tried to dig quite deep into the background of the website as well, but they won't find anything, because there's nothing on the website that isn't true. There's a lot of stuff that could be put up there, but we've had to try and be diplomatic and withhold certain things, because we don't want to give the Maritime and Coastguard Agency anything they can use to try and lever the way out of this. But at the moment, there are several reasons why the MCA is stalling. But one of those reasons is quite possibly, and I'm actually 99% certain, that the guy at Holyhead Coastguard, the manager there, just Raymond Carson, who I mentioned before, he's due to retire at the end of April. And in typical sort of government agency fashion, it'll be the case that when he's gone, it'll be, oh well, we can't consult him on this, he's not here now, and you can't consult him on that, he's not here now. And that's just one reason why they're stalling. He'll go, and then they'll make out, well, we can't give you this information because we don't have access to it anymore. So as I said before, I've got a couple of tricks up my sleeve. Mr. Carson, I believe, is an integral part of this fake letter. In fact, I've got some evidence, some quite strong evidence that that is the case, and I will be bringing it up. He won't have a chance to retire unless he suddenly throws a sickie tomorrow and retires. As I say, John Williams, who was a guy who was originally involved in passing the hoax scenario into the UFO community. He tried several people before Russ Keller took the bait. I've been able to link him to Holyhead Coastguard, and that proves conspiracy, basically. Holyhead Coastguard were waiting for Russ Keller's communication, and it seems to be the case, in fact I know it's the case, that the letter, when it was drafted, the letter I showed earlier, some short time after the information was given to Russ and it was out there as a statement of fact. In fact, what they consulted to come up with the Operation Photoflash rubbish was just a few newspaper cuttings. Now I also know those newspaper cuttings were in Holyhead Coastguard Station, but another Freedom of Information request that I filed, they're suddenly missing. And so that's another issue I've got with them, which I'll be raising in the very near future. I know that Holyhead Coastguard, when they constructed that letter in April 2000, used information from newspaper cuttings to put it together and create the story that supported John Williams' assertions. And a few months after that letter was given to Russ, the letter appears to have been removed from the official files and stashed somewhere where it wasn't meant to be found, because of course the letter wasn't kosher. And then when someone come along and inquired, it was wheeled out, dug out and passed off as proof that this naval operation occurred. Of course, the letter doesn't say anything like this naval operation was hunting UFOs. It just said there was a naval operation in the Irish Sea, all around the Irish Sea, around the coast and the North Wales coast. Of course, we know the remit of any bombing that was going on in the Irish Sea, and as they made the mistake of saying it was linked to Jurby, enquiries there show that the event never happened at all. So MCA are going to have some explaining to do about this, and basically that's the update. There was originally my intention to do a part 2 when I did these video uploads. There was a part 1, there was a part 1A, this is part 1B, and part 2 is still on the cards, but it won't be up until I get this response from MCA, which they're dragging themselves out with. They seem very reluctant to have that up, but it doesn't matter, because I can take this as far as it goes to its natural conclusion. I'm in no rush. A couple of people might get away with it, but one thing's for certain, MCA won't escape the fact that a Holyhead Coastguard employee created a letter, totally false information, and that letter was created to support an external hoax by a guy who was linked to Holyhead Coastguard Station. This information, the proof of that, of course, is going to come out in due course. But as I say, I can't release that information too soon, because then they'll just look for a reason to get round it. I'm not going to give them that opportunity. People might believe in UFOs and little green men, and people might not. But that's their choice. But whether they choose to believe that or not, what they have to face up to the fact is that there is a conspiracy between persons in Holyhead Coastguard Station who created a totally fictitious document to support a naval operation, to support the idea that a naval operation was involved in shooting up some flying saucers that were forced out of the water, which eventually crashed on the Berwyn Mountains. And that is reprehensible behaviour, and if I can expose it, I will, and it's my intention to expose it. And just the mere fact that this lady, Elaine Adams, who's been handling my review request, she's stolen. Now, I don't care what she says, I don't care whether she's dying, whether she's ill, whether her father's had a baby, you know, I don't care. Nothing she can say will convince me now that she's not stolen for time. Therefore, that makes her complicit. She is covering up for someone, and she's deliberately dragging her heels. And She said to me, what was it? 3rd of March. It'll be sent off to you the next day if I catch the post. If not, on the Wednesday. Now, if she hasn't done that, if she had no intentions of doing that, then what she wrote to me was a blatant lie. And that, to me, means she's corrupt. She is covering for someone. She had no intentions of sending that information. She just tried to bullshit me that she was. And that makes her complicit. Now, whether she's been sucked into this, dragged into it, or she's a willing partner in it, it doesn't matter. If she's got a grain of integrity in her body, she will come clean, hold her hand up and say, this is it, like. At the very least, she should walk away from it and give it to someone who's a bit more responsible. But of course, these people look after their own. They're not interested in how many people they inconvenience. They're not interested about what it says on their website about we will investigate any complaint to our utmost ability. It's all a PR exercise. It's all a load of bollocks. They don't care at all. Their first and foremost consideration is saving the face of the Maritime and Coastguard Agency, and secondly to save the face of its employees. They just stick together, and that's just bent. And if they want to do that, man, that's up to them. But they're living a lie, and they might even pat themselves on the back saying, what a good job we've done. You know, we've done this, we've done that, we've saved a few lives here, we've saved that ship from sinking, all this. And it's all a facade, because deep down, the people concerned, they're hiding secrets, and it cannot be justified in a free society. And if they think that hiding secrets, hiding information, not cooperating with the public is more important than the truth, then it just goes to show what sort of people they are. And they just represent everything that's bad about British society. So we'll see what comes. As I say, the complaint's gone in. We'll see how quickly they respond to that. But I'm sure, say it's the 15th of March today. This will be up on YouTube by tonight. I'm sure they'll read it by tomorrow, view it, have a nice read, see my face, throw darts at me, whatever they want to do. But as I say, it doesn't alter the fact that I think they're all bent. She's covering for Carson. Carson's involved in promoting this letter, and this letter was created to promote a hoax outside the Holyhead Coastguard Station. And Russ Kellett was the fall guy. But as I say, since the shit hit the fan, he's backed off now. He doesn't mention this Photoflash. He's gone away from the Berwyn. He's all Templar Knights now, and talking about the UFO hotspot of Filey in Yorkshire. It used to be Bradford, where he used to live before, but now the UFO hotspot in Britain has moved to Filey, and it's all happening there. And just as a little side note there, Russ did put up something on Facebook a few days ago about a UFO sighting over a lake near Scarborough. People have asked him where this place is, and in typical Russ Kellett style, he's dodged the issue. He hasn't come forward, he hasn't published where it was. Someone sent me a photograph of the location, and I tracked it down in 5 minutes, 6 minutes. It was a place called Throxtonby Mere, outside Scarborough, and a little road runs down the side of it, and apparently someone saw an upside down classic UFO, flying saucer type UFO, in an inverted shape apparently. And there was supposed to be a sky watch there after the event, but I don't know where that came off. I think it was too cold. But anyone who watches this who wants to know about that top secret UFO location, it was a place called Throxtonby Mere outside Scarborough, and it took me about 5 or 6 minutes to track it down from a photograph that someone sent me. And no one can justify, in the UFO community, no one can justify withholding information like that. trying to make it more mysterious. Oh, there's a UFO being seen here, there's a UFO being seen here, but I can't tell you where it is because for whatever reason everyone might go there and it might frighten them off. You know, it's always after the event anyway. But as I say, I'm quite happy to mention that anything that people post up and then try to hide, you know, by making a mystery out of it. Ooh, this happened here or this happened there, but I can't tell you where it is. If I find any information, I will publish it. I don't believe in secrets. I believe people who keep secrets are a disgrace within the UFO community. I'm not too happy about people in the UFO community who make up embellishments to UFO events, because that just makes matters worse. And of course, for the likes of government agencies and things like that, as I say, what we've just been talking about now with the Maritime and Coastguard Agency, they're acting like the Stasi. You know, there's information to be got, there's information to be had that could be given within the law. Just hand the bloody information over. So I'll sign off now, and until next time, have fun.